U.S. President Donald Trump bats away speculation he'll meet North Korea's leader when he comes to South Korea this weekend. However, he raises new questions, suggesting they might speak in a different form. President Moon Jae-in departs for Osaka soon for the G20 Summit. His first order of the day is a crunch meeting with his Chinese counterpart. North Korea issues are likely to dominate their discussions. Plus, South Korea gets a second member on the prestigious IOC board. He'll be tasked with boosting South Korea's image on the international stage of sports diplomacy. Now, there has been speculation U.S. President Donald Trump could sit down with North Korea's Kim Jong-un while he's in South Korea this coming weekend. But Trump made clear on Wednesday that a meeting will not take place at this time. Rather, he cryptically explained that he may be in contact with Kim in a different way. Our Kim Hyo-sun starts us off.
President Trump says he has no plans to meet North Korean leader Kim Jong-un during his visit to South Korea this weekend. Before leaving Washington for the G20 Summit in Japan, Trump told reporters Wednesday that he may be speaking with Kim in a different form. He also stressed he will be meeting with a lot of people, but not Kim Jong-un. Trump elaborated a day earlier that he will meet with the North's leader at some point. When asked about whether the letters he has recently exchanged with Kim might lay the path for a possible third North-U.S. summit. President Trump will sit down with South Korean President Moon Jae-in in Seoul on Sunday and is reportedly planning to visit the demilitarized zone between the two Koreas, prompting speculation a third Kim-Trump summit could be arranged. Now it's left to be seen whether Washington's special representative for North Korea, Stephen Biegun, who's due in Seoul on Thursday, can arrange working-level talks with the North to resume the stalled denuclearization process. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
So, as a follow-up to that report, Stephen Biegun, the U.S. Special Representative for North Korea, is due in Seoul in the coming hours for talks with South Korean officials. He's going to meet Lee Do-hoon, who is Seoul's Special Representative for Korean Peninsula Peace and Security Affairs, to thrash out the agenda for the South Korea-US summit scheduled for Sunday. They'll also share the latest information on North Korea. Biegun also shared info with Japan's nuclear envoy over the phone on Wednesday and promised to closely cooperate with Tokyo on North Korea issues. The U.S. State Department says Biegun is staying in Seoul for 4 days and will be joined later by Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Now, President Moon Jae-in takes the short hop over the EC to Osaka this afternoon to attend the G20 Summit. He commences his schedule with a crunch meeting on Thursday with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Once he's home, he'll be hosting U.S. President Donald Trump in Seoul as hope rises for a breakthrough in the impasse over North Korea's denuclearization. Our Shin Se-min has more on the annual whirlwind of handshakes, how-do-you-dos and backroom deals.
The doors to some diplomatically charged sessions open up in Japan on Thursday, ahead of the 2-day G20 summit as the leaders fly into the city of water, Osaka. President Moon Jae-in will depart for Osaka on Thursday afternoon, where his 3-day schedule will begin with a sit-down with his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping. Seoul's top office says President Moon will listen to the outcome of President Xi's visit to Pyongyang last week and seek a continued and productive partnership with Beijing on Korean Peninsula-related issues. Next on his schedule, a dinner with around 400 Koreans living in Japan to thank them for making Koreans proud on foreign soil. On Friday, the opening day of the Premier Forum for International Economic Cooperation, President Moon will speak at the first G20 session on the theme of global economy, trade, and investment.
President Moon will introduce the government's expansionary fiscal policy, including its recent proposal for a supplementary budget. He'll also highlight the need for G20 members to coordinate on pending issues that affect the global economy.
Also high on the South Korean leader's agenda, the peace process on the Korean Peninsula.
President Moon will define his administration's policy direction on the Korean Peninsula. He'll highlight his pursuit of North Korea's complete denuclearization and forging lasting peace in the region.
President Moon will also be busy on the sidelines of the summit. He's scheduled to hold face-to-face talks with his counterparts from Russia, Canada, and Indonesia, as well as shorter discussions with the leaders of Argentina, the Netherlands, and India before returning home on Saturday. The president is looking at a highly charged few days of diplomacy in Japan, which will continue on through the weekend when he hosts the U.S. president in Seoul, where the two are likely to discuss ways to revive the nuclear talks with North Korea. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Now, there's no denying the highlight of the G20 summit will be the trade talks between the United States and China, but North Korea is also a key issue that needs to be broached, with President Moon Jae-in set to meet all the major players involved. There's anticipation his meetings in Osaka and then his meeting with Trump in Seoul might kickstart the nuclear talks that have been seemingly stalled in recent months. Park Hee-jun reports.
Dubbed the Denuclearization Super Week, the G20 summit in Osaka kicks off this Friday with hopes of reviving nuclear talks on North Korea. During the G20, President Moon Jae-in is expected to focus on gauging where Kim Jong-un currently stands as he meets both the leaders of China and Russia. Chinese leader Xi Jinping met the North Korean leader in Pyongyang last week, while Russian President Vladimir Putin also held a summit with Kim in Vladivostok in April. Both are likely to deliver Kim's thoughts to President Moon, which Moon will use to take the lead in mediating between North Korea and the U.S. But he still has a lot of work cut out for him in finding ways to negotiate the North's nuclear disarmament.
In the talk between the U.S. and South Korea, the idea which came out commonly is that they have to come up with a big deal first. Then, in an implementation level, there can be small talk-based negotiations. So these ideas are something that we have to take a look at whether three leaders can come up with any kind of, commonizing ideas.
Presidents Trump and Xi will also meet. At the center of their hegemonic battle over trade tensions will be how China might leverage its recent interactions with Kim. Experts expect Xi to reassure his American counterpart that Chairman Kim is still willing to continue the nuclear talks.
North Korea's denuclearization will be just a small issue among other major ones, including the trade conflict. I don't think that alone will drive the momentum for denuclearization. But President Xi is likely to reaffirm that it supports the North's denuclearization and efforts to achieve that through dialogue.
It's unlikely that the G20 summit will provide a major turning point. But the sit-down between Presidents Moon and Trump in Seoul right after the G20 is expected to add new momentum on the diplomatic front pertaining to North Korea. Concrete results are more likely to be yielded from Pyongyang and Washington's working-level talks, but the general belief is that a united front between Moon and Trump could be enough to bring the North Korean leader back to the negotiating table. Park Hee-jun, Arirang News.
Now we start our world news with a tragic photo that flashed around the world this week. It shows a man and his toddler daughter who drowned in the Rio Grande as they were trying to enter the United States. And it really underscores the perils of the migration crisis on the US-Mexico border. For more on this and other news from around the world, let's turn to our Hong Yu. So there has been this renewed outrage over the Trump administration's handling of the crisis. How exactly did the U.S. Senate address it on Wednesday?
Well, the Senate approved a bill Wednesday that would grant $4.6 billion for the humanitarian crisis on the southern border with Mexico. The legislation has to be merged with a different border aid bill passed by the House of Representatives before it is sent to be signed by President Trump into law. About $1.3 billion would be used to improve facilities at the border and the rest for the care of migrant children. But even before the Senate-approved bill was put to a vote, the House rejected it, setting up a clash over immigration policy. The House claims the measures will not improve conditions at detention centers. House Democrats say their version of a border bill would take better care of children by delivering appropriate medical care, nutrition, and hygiene. They also address the need for translators at border facilities.
Today, sadly, our values are being undermined by the president's failed policies, which has intensified the situation of heartbreak and horror on the border, which challenges the conscience of America. This legislation is a vote. Today, our legislation is a vote against the cruel attitude toward children of this administration.
The need of humanitarian assistance became into clear focus as a shocking photo of a drowned father and his 23-month-old daughter went viral worldwide. The photo shows them face down on the banks of the Rio Grande with the daughter's limp arm around her father. Pope Francis expressed immense sadness seeing the image, and the photo was published on the front page of the Vatican newspaper. The UN's refugee agency said the picture represents a failure to address the violence and desperation pushing people to take the life-threatening journey. Bitcoin prices hit an 18-month high on Wednesday following Facebook's announcement that it plans to offer its own Libra cryptocurrency in 2020. Bitcoin has risen every day for 8 straight days, soaring past $13,000. That's a roughly 150% jump in just over a month. Market watchers think Facebook's announcement roughly 2 weeks ago fueled investors' interest in digital currencies as many look for safety in alternative investment options. Hong Kong protesters held another massive protest Wednesday ahead of the G20 Summit to appeal for foreign support in their fight against the now suspended extradition bill. Protesters say the bill would compromise Hong Kong's legal system by linking the island's judicial system with that of mainland China. In various languages, they read out a declaration that requests a complete withdrawal of the bill. Ahead of their protest, hundreds of people visited the Hong Kong consulates of G20 nations, excluding China, to deliver letters urging their leaders to back their bid for the full withdrawal of the bill.
Now, the head of South Korea's Olympic body has been elected as a new member of the International Olympic Committee. Lee Ki-hung became one of 10 new IOC members on Wednesday. He'll be tasked with boosting South Korea's efforts to increase its influence in global sports diplomacy. Lee Seung-jae reports.
During the International Olympic Committee's 134th session in Lausanne, Switzerland, Wednesday, 10 representatives were named the latest members of the top Olympic organization in the world. Among the newest members is Lee Ki-hung, president of the Korean Sports and Olympic Committee. The 64-year-old joins the 2004 Olympic table tennis gold medalist Yoo Seung-min as the second South Korean sitting on the IOC's board. Lee also becomes just the 11th South Korean to be elected to the position in the history of the IOC. Lee earned his nomination for the position in late May, and the approval of Lee and the 9 other candidates was considered a formality. Each of the candidates needed to garner the majority of votes cast, and the newest South Korean member earned 57 of the 62 votes with 2 abstention. With his new position, Lee becomes one of 3 new members linked to their function within their national Olympic committees or a Continental Olympic Association. Lee is a veteran sports administrator who has served in a number of executive roles for multiple organizations, both domestic and international. He was the president of the Korea Canoe Federation from 2004 to 2009, vice president of the Asian Canoe Federation in 2007, vice president of the Asia Swimming Federation from 2012 to 2016, and president of the Korea Swimming Federation from 2010 to 2016. He also served as vice president on the organizing committees for the 2014 Incheon Asian Games and the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics, 2 major international competitions hosted by South Korea in recent years. While his term is 8 years, he'll remain as the chief of South Korea's Olympic Committee during that period in order to maintain his IOC membership. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Now, South Korea is going to host its largest annual sports competition this autumn. The National Sports Festival is set to take place in October. Some 30,000 athletes will compete at dozens of venues in Seoul for a week. To celebrate the festival's 100th anniversary, a cross-country torch relay will take place, starting from places including Dokdo Island and the Truce village of Panmunjom. And for the first time in the event's history, the Bank of Korea will mint 10,000 commemorative coins. Time now for our Life and Info segment, where we focus on information that we hope is useful for your everyday life, whether you are in Korea or somewhere else around the world, or perhaps even interested in coming here. Today we are going to focus on culture, and to explain what's going on in South Korea right now, I'm extremely happy to say we have our Won Jong-hwan joining us in the studio. So Jong-hwan, what do you have for us this morning?
Hi Mark, I'd like to introduce you a musical today, which many people probably have heard before about the title. So the musical is the second part of the Along with the Gods series, which was originally based on the webtoon that was first released back in 2010. So, but many people probably recognize the name from the two film adaptations which they were screened in theaters quite recently. The first of these fantasy action drama films was released in 2017, becoming the third most watched movie in South Korean history.
And that's starring Ha Jong-woo, right? He's
Exactly.
the lead actor there.
Yeah. The second one wasn't bad either. It was released at the end of last year, drawing a domestic audience of more than 10 million, good enough for the 10th place of the all-time list. But I'm not here to talk about the movie, actually.
Yeah, you actually want to introduce us to musicals, right? But I just wanted to ask you first whether this musical, because I hear it kind of has its basis in deities somewhat, and those coming from the myths of the Greek and Roman eras. Is that right?
Yes, correct, but with a modern Korean twist inside it. Along with the Guides portrays Korean gods in the contemporary and fun fashion. As I've mentioned before, the story is based on a webtoon, and that webtoon has three main chapters: the afterlife, the present, and the legend. Those titles are quite literal. The afterlife is about the afterlife, the present is about the day-to-day life in the world we live in, and the legend is about the god themselves.
So does that mean that we're going to see a third movie in this series? Presumably we are.
Not today.
We'll talk about that another day.
And the musical that is running in Seoul until the end of this week is the second part of the series, the present. Part one, The Afterlife, was showcased 4 years ago, and it was a huge hit with every performance being sold out. It was refreshing to the audience because it had a slightly different plot compared to the film adaptation and the original webtoon.
How the audience takes in webtoons, films, and musicals are all different. For example, I rearranged the characters according to the musical fit so viewers can understand the plot more easily.
So, Jong-hwan, without giving away too much, just tell us briefly about the story. And we all want to know, because some people might have read the webtoon, how much does it differ from that to this musical?
So the story goes like this. 8-year-old Dong-hyun lives with his grandfather. When the urban redevelopment project kicks in within their neighborhood and threatens their home, two house guardian gods decide to appear as a human form to protect their houses. To make matters worse, gods of the underworld arrive to try and take away Dong-hyun's grandfather to the afterlife. And the guardian gods struggles to protect the old man who is raising his young grandson alone. But that's not it. The musical effortlessly weaves to the two main plots in one setting. The other one is about an unemployed young man named Park Sung-woo. Sung-woo moves from pillar to post without a proper home. One day, with the help of his old friend, he lands a job where he is given the task of demolishing a village. And that village is the one where little Dong-hyun and his grandfather live in. As the story progresses, it shows Sung-ho grappling with his conscience as he is forced to make a difficult choice. So what's interesting here is that in the webtoon, the story was mainly focused on the first plot about the kid and the guardian gods, but in the musical, the second plot received more weight. I'm not going to give out any more major spoilers, but the main story revolves around the battle between those who carry out forced evictions and those trying to protect their own homes. It touches upon a real sensitive issue in the modern world, urban redevelopment, and its impact on residents of old neighborhoods.
I'm glad I can talk about this kind of story in this contemporary time. I tried my best to communicate with our audience about a sensitive social issue.
So while it's hard-hitting at times, it's great fun to see the gods come into real life and mingle with the ordinary people. The musical will be performed until this week at the LG Art Center, so maybe check it out.
Okay, where's the LG Art Center? In
LG,
Seoul?
Yes, in Seoul.
Whereabouts?
Seoul at the Gangnam station near over there,
Okay.
Yeoksam.
Okay,
Yeah.
and I'm sure the tickets are fairly reasonably priced as well?
Yes.
Okay, but
similar
book
to
early if you can.
Book early, like I said, the first series of the musical was all sold out. Maybe there might some tickets left out.
And did you go and watch it yourself?
I did. I had the chance to
And
watch
did
the
you like
second
it?
one. It was okay.
Okay.
It was, I love the webtoon better, actually.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, not everyone's into musicals. It's a bit of a taste thing. But I'm sure if that's the kind of thing you're interested in and fantasy stories, you're going to love it. Jong-won, thank you very much for coming in as always, and can't wait to speak to you again one other Thursday in the future. Now, that sounds wonderful, of course. Check that out if you can. LG Arts Center in the Gangnam part of Seoul. Now we're going to take a quick look at some other cultural and sports events that Jong-won has put together that are taking place across South Korea. So the monsoon season has arrived in Korea, but even though we expected a downpour, the capital of Seoul and its surrounding areas just saw some light sprinkles overnight. And now there's a brief break from the monsoon rain. We have our Lee Ji-hyun. She is at the Cheonggyecheon stream in downtown Seoul for us. Ji-hyun, we all thought we'd get soaked today. It looks like you're topping up your tan there. What can we expect today?
Good morning, Mark. You know, I was really ready and we were expecting that I would get soaked by heavy showers for today's weather report, but rather we had a cloudy and, high humidity start to the day. But right now we are looking at clear blue skies with partial clouds. Amazing what Mother Nature can do for us. But I'm sure it would be a different story if I were in certain parts of the country, especially in Gyeongsang-do provinces, where they saw heavy showers even until this morning. But most rain clouds have moved out farther east. But Gyeongsang-do provinces and the surrounding regions, including Busan, are still seeing light rain, but that will taper off by this afternoon. There aren't any heavy rain advisories in place for now. However, we are looking at more showers in those areas. 5 to 30 millimeters are in the forecast. Parts of Gangwon-do and Jeolla, Bukdo provinces will also see 5 millimeters or less through this afternoon. Temperature-wise, daily highs in Seoul will be 31 degrees Celsius. Daegu should have highs nearly 6 degrees higher than yesterday. Now, monsoon showers are set to return this Saturday, dropping heavy showers on the southern parts of the country. So do expect muggy conditions for the time being. But again, we are in monsoon season, so we could see some passing showers at any time. Make sure you have an umbrella handy. That's Korea for you, and here's international weather for years around the world.
Well, that's all the news and weather we have for now on this Thursday morning here in Seoul. Do stay tuned to Arirang TV, and we'll have our next newscast at noon Korea time with our Lee Ji-yoon. So until then, goodbye.